Yes, no. So, guys, what we want to talk about today, if you're out there today and you're realizing, like, oh my goodness, what our marriage has become versus what we hoped it would be. Thank you for pointing that out. Whoever it just says Facebook user on our end. If that's you, if that describes you, and you're realizing this should have been so much more. This is not what I signed up for. And you're trying to figure out where things went wrong. This is exactly the place that you need to be. And before we totally dive in, I just want to say, like, if you are finding us on Facebook, make sure you search Turnaround Marriage. You're going to find our group. We've got about 1,800 people there. You're also going to find Turnaround Marriage Transformational Coaching that you can make sure you like that so that you see all of our content coming your way. Also, if you're finding us on YouTube, make sure you like and subscribe. And we'd appreciate it deeply if you share that and share our message of hope. And so let's just go ahead and dive in, Rach. And it is so true. We talk to a lot of people, a lot of individuals, a lot of couples, and it is the same. Like it is hard for us to hear, but it is the reality is we're diving into the situations. For a lot of people, you hear what has become normal.
Yeah.
And it's a place of pain. It's a place of disconnection. And in some parts of it, it's like, they're thinking, how did I get here? And yet in the other aspect of that, it's actually become normal to them.
Yeah.
And that's where it's really sad that it's been so long that this has become actually normal. So, guys, so let's think about it. When we took those vows years ago and we were so excited about what the future would hold. I mean, that's what that day is about. It's about the promise. It's about that vow. And you are excited about the future. You're excited about the fact that your love isn't just real, it's also growing, and you have every expectation it's going to continue to grow. You have every expectation you're going to have a sexual connection that's going to be amazing. You have plans to have children together, right? And so much more, yet things seem so far away.
Yeah, it's so heartbreaking because most of you probably married your best friend, somebody that you really got along with, someone that you thought you were going to do life with, make memories with, take vacations and enjoy this beautiful life that God's given you together. And even just walking with the Lord together, growing spiritually together. And suddenly, or over time, or however you have found yourself, suddenly this new normal is, how did we get here?
Right.
For so many of you, you might find yourself in a completely sexless marriage. And by definition, that's less than 10 times per year, where it's like very, very rare. And you're missing out on the beautiful connection, emotional and sexual and physical connection and spiritual connection of the gift of sex that God has for believers, right? For all people in the married covenant. Or you might have found yourself just constantly fighting, arguing about the littlest things. And you don't even know how this argument even escalated to the point that it did, when you don't even know what you're arguing about anymore. And your hearts feel very, very far apart. And maybe you've gotten yourself to the point where you're just hurting so spiritually because you've been crying out to God saying, please help me in my marriage. And yet it just feels hopeless. It feels so far away from what you signed up for, so far away from what you thought it was going to be. And this gap of what we expected and reality, that gap of disappointment just seems to grow wider and deeper every single day.
Yeah, it's so true. And it's not uncommon for us to hear people say, like, we don't even talk.
Yeah.
Or to say it's been years since we've actually been intimate. Like, it's more common than we would perhaps even imagine.
It's so heartbreaking.
It is heartbreaking because God designed it to be so much more. And you hear couples say things like, it's sort of like we're business partners. Like, I don't even feel close to them. It's just like time is going by and we live in the same house and we've got kids that we got to take care of,
or roommates, right?
Yeah, I just feel like we're roommates, and sometimes, it's like we're just constantly walking on eggshells, and it often has gotten to a place where people are living in different parts of the house just so they can avoid each other.
Yeah.
And guys, I just want you to think for a moment, if I had described to you the day you got married what things look like now, or if you were to describe it to yourself, would you have believed it? Would that have been acceptable to you? To say where things are in 5, 10, 20 years from then? The answer is no freaking way would that be okay. It might be normal now, but you would never have signed up for that. You would never have allowed that to happen. You knew that would not honor God, and you knew that God had something far greater than what has happened. So guys, we do want to shake you in some ways so that you realize that though it's become normal, it is not okay.
Yeah.
So let's just ask that question for a moment. How did the unthinkable become the actual normal for you
Mm.
and normal for your home? And the answer lies in, there's a couple different possibilities, but mostly it probably lies in some degree with a slow shift.
Mhm.
It looked like animosity building up over time. Slowly but surely, the bickering and the inability to solve the conflict. Maybe you didn't have the right tools, and slowly things have built up over time, and that normal little by little becomes more and more normal for you, such that you've found yourself in this really a pit of pain, and it should have been so much more.
And then right along with that is, for many of you, you grew up in a home where conflict was handled very poorly, and you do not want to be that way. And so
Right.
instead of handling conflict, you just avoid it at all costs. So we've heard so many husbands say, I just want peace. I just don't want to fight. I just don't want to fight. I just don't want to fight. And what they're doing in that honorable idea of what they want, but how they go about that is just pushing things down, not talking about certain things, not being truly honest and open. And the rift and the loss of intimacy and connection really happens there.
Right.
But sometimes it's not a slow fade. Sometimes it is this big traumatic event where you've had a terrible death or a loss of a loved one or a loss of a child or some tragedy in your family that just shook you to the core. And all of those little cracks suddenly now are huge fissures in the marriage. It could just be COVID. I mean, COVID has changed our entire world and the entire way that we even relate to people and think about life and think about what's reality and what's not, because the world has been so insane for the last couple of years that it hasn't not affected everyone in some way or another. And so, it could be a financial hit, like some loss of money or a bad investment or just going bankrupt or something along those lines where you hit rock bottom. And it really, the stress of that just percolated and again, caused this disconnection in the marriage. And so little by little, each of these things can now start to become normal, where it's like normal that we don't talk when we get home from work. It's normal we ignore each other. We stop kissing each other goodnight. It's normal that we snap back at each other and we don't watch how we roll our eyes at each other or sigh under our breath or do all these little things that just undercut the connection. It's become normal to turn away from each other over and over and over again when you should be turning toward them, when you can tell they're hurting, there's something wrong, and yet you're going to ignore it and pretend like you don't notice, right? And so it's like, how did we allow this? How did this happen? And we felt it in our own marriage. We felt it for a good 10 years of just really being disconnected. We were 100% committed, but yet it was just so miserable and not fun. And we had resigned ourselves. This is just how it has to be. And, and you have that mindset and you just go, well, I guess we're just going to grit and bear it. And for some of you guys, here's what's happened is it's been one spouse has maybe treated the other one very poorly or done, been very domineering or very passive or very manipulative or very whatever, fill in the blank. And you've taken it and you've taken it and you've taken it until you're not going to take it anymore. And that's where the crisis comes, because now if you don't have anything to replace that with, if you don't know how to shift out of these old patterns and instead of just bucking up against it, there's no new skill, there's no new path forward. There's a very big crisis at hand. And so you've got to get the right help and you've got to be able to fix this so that you can break out of these patterns and actually start building connection. Because guys, things will rapidly fall apart if we are not actively working to build them. This is just the second law of thermodynamics. Things fall apart without intention and without actively trying to grow, right? So that's just my nerdy science.
Well, we're doing the science thing. It's because what's happening, it's like kind of like, when we had to do frogs in 8th grade, it's like bringing a frog to boil is kind of what's happened. It's little by little.
Turn that heat up slowly.
And you didn't even realize it, but little by little, each step of the way, it became more and more normal. So what do you do? How do you get out of it? How do you change the patterns that have been deep-seated and been there for a long time and have been growing, whether that's been 2 years or whether it's been 5, 10, 20, or even more than that? And guys, what I would first say is you need to look in the mirror and see how far off it is. You need to actually be shocked at how far you've come from that day that you got married, and
Mm,
from what you hoped that it would be, and that vow that you took. And you need to deeply believe that where you're at is not God's best for you, for your spouse, or for your children. And I don't
yeah.
care if your kids are little at home or if they're grown. They don't deserve to see marriage the way it has been modeled to them, because God designed marriage to be a gift. So there has to be a real deep measure of repentance and sorrow over where you've allowed things to get to.
Yeah.
And because marriage can be and should be so much more than it has. And
Mm.
so what we have to do with that, guys, is we have to go back to our vows that we took before God, we took before each other, and all those people, a lot of whom have gone on into glory, right? Go back to
Mm.
our vows to have and to hold, to honor and to cherish, and go back to actually remembering who you are and the promise that you made.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It's so vitally important.
Yeah. Because if we're not looking in the mirror and we're not facing the reality of where you are, you will likely just to continue turn that temperature up, let that frog continue to boil until the
Mhm.
frog is dead. And that frog, of course, is the analogy of your marriage. And guys, we care too much to not just shake you a little bit and wake you up here.
Right.
And so you have to actually get to the point where you're sick and tired of doing it the way you've been doing it and
Yep.
really decide to fix it now. And so one of the things we offer is we offer a complimentary breakthrough call. And we see you saying, "I'm trying now," and we honor you for that. And what we do is we offer you a complimentary breakthrough call where we really do help you get clarity about where you're at, how bad this is hurting you, how this is hurting the other parts of your lives, and how it's hurting your children, and what you can do about it. And then what we do, one of the amazing things we do on that call is we help you start to paint a picture of the dream of what you actually picture it could be.
Mhm.
What could the second half of your marriage look like? For many of you, you've been married a couple of decades or more. For many of you, you've been stuck in these patterns, and now your kids are gone and you're looking at each other like, what do we do now? We don't want to keep going like this, where we come home from work and we're ticked off and we're not talking, and we're going to bed alone again and feeling that alone, even in a marriage, guys. And so on this call again, and if you're a very good fit, we will show you what that could look like to actually heal that marriage with us. And maybe there's something else we could point you to that would be better for you. We were definitely going to point you in the right direction for you, to show you what's the best way and what's the best path forward, because we're here to say, for those of you who are sick and tired of doing it the way you've been doing it, for those
Right.
of you who are truly ready to fix your marriage now, to empty your cup, to be open to a new way of doing things, and ready to invest time and resources and energy into your marriage, please do so before that reserve of energy runs out. Because so for many of you, you're getting right there to the point where you're so tired, you may just have to throw in the towel, because you're too far, you're too close to that point of no return. Please do
point.
not wait too long.
Yeah.
Please do not wait too long. For many of you, there is so much hope, and there is an ability to fix this. But again, it's going to take that ability to get resourceful, the ability to look in the mirror and say, we cannot keep going like this. And the
Right.
ability to say, I decide now to change this. And the
Yep.
word decide means to cut off. It means to cut off any other possibility. And so, guys, that's really what it takes. It takes that decisiveness to say, no more. We are not going to keep winging this. We're not going to
It's
keep
not
coming
okay.
home ticked off and
Yep.
mad and just looking forward to the weekend and then doing our own thing on the weekend and staying disconnected. Guys, this is not a marriage that honors God. And there is
Right.
so much more that He has for you. And maybe this very point of crisis is where you're at right now, is exactly where God wants you, because you've come to that place of decision where it's like things have to change. And if that's you, we want to encourage you to book that call at turnaroundmarriage.com/call. Like
Yeah.
I said, we're going to love you on that call. We're going to serve you. We're going to give you the clarity and give you massive value on that call and point you in the right direction on how to fix this now.
Yeah, that's so good. So
yeah.
good, hon. And just to weave in some hope,
Yeah.
we're talking to one of our recent additions clients that we have,
Yeah.
and they said, we've wasted a lot of money and time, but this has been already the best investment in our marriage we could have made. And that was just really encouraging to hear that, of course.
Yeah.
But I love that they see, when they decide, they put the line in the sand for there to be change, that there is really hope. And that's really what I want to leave everybody with today, because what is possible is not just marriage improvement. In fact, that's what a lot of times people try to do. It's like, I just want to get out of this pain, and they don't aim very high. They
Right.
just aim to get rid of some of the heartache. And that's not what marriage was supposed to be either.
Yeah.
God designed it to be so much more. And I want to give you the hope today that your marriage could be not just as much as you hoped it would be on your day that you took that vow. I'm here to tell you it can be far greater because we're living that. I'm here to tell you that when you see somebody by your side that's been through that crap and stuck by your side, it can be so much more. It truly can. So we share that hope with you today just because we know that in God's heart for you is that marriage you've been praying for. So if that describes you and you're ready, you're sick and tired, and you're ready for that change, make sure you guys reach out. turnaroundmarriage.com/call.
Yeah.
Until next time, we shall talk soon.
Bye-bye.